Hey everybody, this is Josh,
And the Steen.
and here we are again with finding an agent. And want to ask everybody to like and subscribe and leave a comment. And this week we're going to talk a little bit about what I did this week on writing, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what Dean's been reading. So I'm going to go ahead and start off. And I mentioned 2 or 3 weeks back I had written a short story, and it was kind of a long short story. Yeah, it was about 13,000 words on the first draft, and after revising and editing it got trimmed down to about 12,000 words. And I sent that story out on submission this week, and so I was going to talk a little bit about that submission process. And I submitted that story to the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. Now, I think I probably have a low chance of getting accepted there because this is a dark speculative fiction story. It's not science fiction. And I know they do take some dark stories or some horror stories, but I think it's a much lower percentage than the amount of science fiction they take. But nevertheless, I did submit there. I like the story quite a bit, but yeah, then again, it is my own story. So I don't know if that means much, but this story is set in East Texas in 1960, and it has a strong father-son storyline in it, which I guess is probably common to a lot of the stuff I write now that I think about it. I think I do have a lot of that in some of my stories, that maybe it's some real life stuff that I work out, through my art. I don't know. But anyway, I thought the story turned out pretty well, and I was pretty proud of it. So I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and take a shot at a major market with that one and see if I, can't get that one in. And so on the submission process, just going to kind of tell everybody a little bit about what that looks like. And with Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, you submit through an online portal. You can submit paper, I believe you can, but they really discourage it. And they definitely have a strong preference for email submissions, and they have a portal where you can attach a Word document. Now, they do also have a link that has like their formatting guidelines and how they like things done. And it's pretty typical manuscript formatting. They want 1-inch margins all the way around, and they want double spaced. They want your name and address and your word count on the front page, above the title and the byline. But the one thing that was a little bit different is they wanted courier font, which is font that looks like typewriter font. And they don't want you to actually use italics or anything like that in the body of your document. They wanted just courier font. And then I do use italics in mine. If I have a character that's having internal monologue, I'll have him, like, his thoughts will be in italics. And so I had to go through and kind of reformat it, change the font, and then anything that was in the italics, I had to go back and just underline it. Oh, and another thing too is any foreign language. If I use foreign language in my manuscripts, I always put the foreign language in italics. So I had to go through and find all the foreign language in this. And this one did have a fair, not a ton, but a fair bit of some foreign language in it. And so I had to go through and find all the foreign language and unitalicize that and make that underlined and things of that nature. So I had to reformat the document, and that took me a little bit, but not too bad, nothing too onerous there. So got all that polished up and ready to go and formatted according to their guidelines. And I made sure I followed their guidelines to a T, because submitting to a professional paying market like that, I certainly don't want my manuscript to get kicked out just because I couldn't read the instructions. And so I got my document formatted, and then I went on to their portal system, and it's pretty easy to upload your manuscript there. But then they do also have a place where they want you to put in a cover letter. And so I just included a short cover letter. I didn't get into a whole lot of specifics there, just said who I am, and this is the name of the document, and this is the word count, and thank you for your time and consideration, and pretty much sent it off. And I'm not really sure how long that's going to take. When you submit there, it does show your place in the queue. And it said that my story was currently number 122 in the queue. I don't know if that actually means that there's 121 stories to be read in front of me, or if that just means there's 121 stories that are pending in front of me. And some of those could have been read and could have been in consideration. So I don't know. And then I received there's some conflicting information too as to the turnaround time. On the submissions page, it indicates that the turnaround time, could be up to 4 months, 2 to 4 months. But then when I submitted, I got a confirmation and it said that the current average response time was 9 days. So I'm really not sure. I don't know if that means that I may get a response in 9 days, or if it's going to be, my guess is that it's going to be somewhere between 9 days and 4 months. So I'm not really sure. But anyway, as soon as I hear something back, I'll let everybody know. But that's kind of been my week. Dean, what have you been up to?
Well, not much. I had a lot of going on with work, trials and whatnot, and just haven't been able to write. Other than that, nothing much going on. No responses to any query letters. Haven't sent out any new query letters.
Yeah, did you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been reading?
Oh yeah. I can talk about that. I have been reading, and I think we both read because we enjoy it, and then like you said, it also helps you to kind of know what's going on out there in the world of writing. And I think we both, have established that we like short stories. And so I've been reading more from Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine, the latest, and the latest issue. And I have to say, I've enjoyed this a lot more than some of the other magazines that I've got subscriptions to. I won't say who. And I guess this makes sense. I didn't think about it at the time. I assumed they would all just be straight up crime or mystery stories, but it kind of harkens back to Alfred Hitchcock's Presents, and that how had some of those episodes had a fantasy element, and so some of the stories in this magazine have a fantasy element. Now, there's always a crime tie-in of some sort, as far as I can tell, but there may be a character that has some kind of fantastic powers or whatever. So in this episode, or this short story is written by an author named Emily Davenport, and you can see that it's called Until You've Seen Their Shadows. And it's basically about a character who is a stroke victim, elderly, and she has the ability to project her soul or consciousness or whatever you want to call it out of her body, short distances away from, where she sits in a wheelchair. She's not capable of moving herself. She's basically completely paralyzed. She can't even communicate with people around her, but her mind is pretty functional. And the story revolves around her basically realizing that someone is a serial killer. And I won't say who, because I think that's part of the charm of the story. But she discovers that there's a serial killer in her midst, or serial killers. And it's her, she then has to try and communicate that fact to someone around her that can do something about it, basically. And like I said, she doesn't really have the capacity to communicate with someone, so she has to, her therapist has come up with a means for her to communicate. She's able to communicate enough to get the therapist convinced that this person is a serial killer. And so and then the other aspect of it is she has the slight ability sometimes to manipulate things in her environment, and so she's able to do that to resolve a conflict at the end, basically, by doing that.
So about how long would you say that story was?
I'd say about 5,000 words would be my guess. I think this author could have turned this into a novel. Like, this could have just been a scene from a novel, but I'll just say she kills off the character at the end. So there's, that's not really possible. And she completely solves the murder mystery, which she could have kind of left open if she'd wanted to, or I think I see a way she could have left that open. But at any rate, maybe she didn't think the character was strong enough to carry a novel. But I thought it was a good story, and I thought it was an interesting premise. I don't think I've seen very many stories where the main character is, a person that's this disabled.
Yeah. Had you read anything else by that author before? You said her name was Davenport?
Yeah, Emily Davenport. I've never heard of her before. Never read anything by her before. But most of these authors in this magazine, since I didn't grow up reading a lot of mystery and crime stories, that's kind of a recent interest for me. And so I'm not very familiar with, who the big names are in that genre.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, you seem to be getting some pretty good mileage out of the Alfred Hitchcock's magazine, though. You seem to enjoy that pretty well.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the money. And I think I paid for a 2-year subscription, and it was worth it. Hopefully the editors don't change or anything. And we've both seen how various magazines can go in a different direction, in a different and sometimes more politically correct direction, depending on who the editors are. So hopefully they'll keep turning out, just good stories and not get overly political.
Yeah, that's one thing that's interesting when submitting to different markets or what have you. And one of the things they always tell you is to go back and read past issues to kind of get a feel for the type of material that they like or the type of stories that they like. But when a market changes editors, then that kind of, I think it completely changes the type of stories that they're looking for, the type of stories that they're going to be publishing. I mean, unless they intentionally try to find someone to kind of carry on the same legacy, you're just going to have a difference in subjective opinions on what stories they want to publish and what type of content they want to carry. And so even reading older issues of a magazine or a market might not give you the best idea of what they're currently publishing if they've changed administrative staff.
Yeah, and as a reader, it's disappointing. And like I said, there's a magazine that I've got a subscription to. I'm not going to say which one. And I got a 2-year subscription based on many years ago, having read it and liked it. And now it's clear that it's taken a political direction, a left-wing political direction that I just don't care for. And I regret having paid for a 2-year subscription on it.
Yeah, that definitely happens. Well, I guess on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. This will probably be a little bit of a shorter episode for us, but hopefully there's something there that you like. And if so, give us a thumbs up and subscribe and leave a comment. And until next week, hope you have a good one.
Take care, folks.
Sorry, I got to start over.
I don't know why that's backwards. It's really weird.
Ah, shit. All right.
We'll get better at this as we go, I guess. And
what's going into the sausage here?
There's definitely some reflection off my head. Yeah, I may end up in federal prison.